We're on YouTube.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion that we come out of the executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now out of executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding with the added caveat of a sundown clause being added to the agreement.
A second.
Second. And do we need to have specific language, Ms. Sardina, as to what that sundown language would state at this time?
Council member, it's my understanding that, yes, we should have some specific language. We could add it as a new paragraph 8 to the agreement. We have to correct the agreement in any event to change the owner to developer language and submit a new agreement to council. So I think the language that might be proposed is along the lines of this agreement shall expire within 1 year of its ratification or approval unless otherwise extended by agreement of the parties.
Mr. Chairman, I amend my motion to the sundown clause being extended for 12 months.
All right, is there a second to that amended motion?
Second.
Second, and I just want to state the intent of that is to get the next step done within that time period, and that's the ordinance that will specify infrastructure improvements to be agreed upon between the city and the developer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I understand that language, Ms. Rodina, please correct me on this, that even though we do have a sunset clause in here, that can be extended by mutual agreement by the city and the developer. Is that correct?
Correct. And then that would come back to city council for approval.
Okay. So the idea
and maybe where it was saying within 12 months, maybe right after that, it says within 12 months, if the anticipated public infrastructure agreement has not been entered into.
and do we need to add language that nothing prevents us from being extended by mutual agreement of the parties?
I think Susan said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So as long as we're all clear on the amended motion and as proposed and its understanding, is there any further discussion on approving the memorandum of understanding before us with the two changes to change the very first word in the opening paragraph from owner to developer, and then adding that paragraph number 8 on the last page of the document regarding a sunset clause. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right, that was very good. Thank you all so much. Hopefully this is the another rail being laid down on this train track to get the Epic Center on track and see some positive steps forward. We appreciate the Davises hanging in there and being patient with us, and we're in the executive session and all those other interested parties. We do appreciate the work that y'all are doing with this project, and we're looking forward to this partnership that we have with the Epic Center in the city as we move forward on this. All right, thank you all so much. I think we can move on to.
Appreciate you guys. Look forward to working with you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care,
I
Richard.
can hear you, Richard, but I can't see you. So thank you for hanging in there. And we're always glad to have y'all participate in these discussions with us and be our partners. So, and Mr. Desessor, thank you so much for your legal advice and guidance, along with our wonderful Susan Herdina and her staff. Y'all have done a marvelous job with all of that. And thanks to city staff for working on this memorandum. I know y'all spent many hours and a lot of discussions on that. So thank you all of y'all for the work on getting it to this point, and let's keep on pushing. All right.
Thank you. And I'll sign off. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right, take care.
All right, so item number 2 is regarding a 2 Race Street LDC property, and Councilman Jackson had contacted me, I think, earlier about this. And so I'm gonna let you take the lead on this right now, Councilman Jackson, and we can see what further discussion we need to go to. So
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think this can be a very brief. Basically, preview of an item that hopefully would come to the real estate committee as this idea moves forward. I'm basically representing myself as a friend of Local Development Corporation. I see that their CEO, Steve Saltzman, is on the call with us. And one of his favorite board members is our dear council member Waring. So he,
Yeah.
on behalf of the LDC, in preparation for any sort of votes that we might be taking in the future, we thought it would be just a really helpful preview for you all to begin to think about what we think is a great idea on its face for where it's located on 2 Ray Street, as well as a prototype or at least a model for our city to continue to work in public-private partnerships. So the LDC right now, and it's very much on the drawing board ideas, I understand. They haven't really, begin to look for financing sources other than to know that they might want to tap into the HUD 202 financing program for senior housing. But right now, LDC owns their headquarters property on the corner of Race and King Street, addressed as 2 Race Street. It's a 1-level, very low-rise building. I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking it was some old motel that was, left over whatever time, but it's definitely a 1-strip office building. It's very nice on the inside. They've done a great job of opening it up and making it a state-of-the-art sort of cubicle type workspace. They have a huge parking lot and obviously height to take advantage of. And in today's world of wanting to put housing, attainable housing, especially for seniors in a neighborhood like they are occupying, that's beginning to come alive to sort of the, attributes of a, let's just say a gentrifying neighborhood in that part of Charleston, that we really want to have some control over housing affordability in that whole district. So they're working with Jacob, Lindsay, our planning director, and Johnson, who I also see is on the call, to brainstorm about the best way of redeveloping their property for a mixed use opportunity to have senior housing and some sort of commercial office space that I think would continue to be or now be able to be an incubator for the kinds of businesses that LDC has been very successful at helping to finance. And I really think that's all we need to know right now. If anybody has any questions, I don't know if we can entertain Ms. Shaw Johnson or Mr. Saltzman if it's necessary, but we wanted to put this forward as a placeholder idea that will be coming back through for a rezoning to MU1, as well as any decisions that the real estate committee might need to enter into down the road.
Yes, Mr. Murray.
Mr. Chairman, could you, somebody needs to put themselves on mute.
Yeah, if you're not participating, please place yourself on mute. Thank you. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, could you recognize, and thank you, Council Lady Jackson, for a wonderful explanation on that and putting this on the agenda. Can we recognize Mr. Saltzman, who's on the line, I believe?
I saw him earlier. Is he still with us? Yes. Steve?
I think you muted, Steve. Okay.
Hello, this is Steve Saltzman. No, thanks for letting me speak, and I promise to keep it brief. And thank you, Councilwoman Jackson, for the introduction. We just think it's an underutilized opportunity, and there are a lot of persistent themes I've heard since I've moved into Charleston. Madam Director Johnson, one of the things she keeps harping on is that whenever we have affordable housing, when the LIHTC period expires, that people convert it to market rate. And we're really looking to see, can we build permanent affordable senior housing on that location? 2 other goals or themes that we have for the project are, another thing we've heard is that there's the couple $100 million of public contracts, only about 2% of it goes to Black-owned businesses. So we want to do a project where we can employ Black design professionals and contractors, if not exclusively, whenever possible. And we're working on identifying them already and have been in conversations. And the third theme is, how do we support Black-owned businesses on the peninsula? And we would try to use every trick in the community development playbook to create affordable commercial space for Black-owned businesses, so they wouldn't have to move off the peninsula when rents rise. I'm happy to entertain any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you for your participation and comments on that. And Councilman Ware, if you don't mind, I'm gonna just ask Ms. Shaw Johnson if she wouldn't mind chiming in first. Giona, can you offer any insights or comments on what we're discussing here?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Shade. I also serve as a member of the board of the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation. So Mr. Saltzman and his team are utilizing some of the former UDAG funds to facilitate pre-development activities around this idea. We think it's a fabulous idea because it certainly incorporates an answer to providing affordable housing for seniors in our community. In addition to that, it expands the opportunity for entrepreneurial opportunities and offices on the peninsula. So this was also presented to the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation Board, and they unanimously supported and approved Mr. Saltzman and his team going forward with using the funds that they have in hand, just a small amount, initially about $20,000, to begin to look at the engineering, to look at the design and all of those things that are required as part of development. So we fully support this effort and then beginning to look at what it takes to make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilman Ware, you wanted to add another comment, I think.
Well, I saw Mr. Morgan on the line. I didn't know whether he wanted to comment or I don't see Mr. Lindsay. I didn't know if Mr. Morgan was going to comment in lieu of Mr. Lindsay.
I think from the planning department standpoint, we are happy to work on this and think it's a great site for affordable housing. So happy to help however we can.
Okay, the last thing I have to say, Mr. Chairman, is that I think the property is currently zoned GB. And as Ms. Jackson said, I think you want to go to MU1, which gives them great flexibility. And the second issue is one of height, because they're in the 2.5-story height district. And so it's a corner location, it's a marquee location, it's an opportunity to put, in part, a Canterbury house, if you will, on this end of town. You have commercial on the first floor, general office on the second, and affordable housing on the third or fourth level. So that's one reason I guess this was elevated for this discussion, so we could send it back to planning with the idea of having a marquee location on that corner, and hopefully at least 4 stories.
I don't know if anybody commented on this, but how big is this property? How many acres?
So it's not that many acres. It's right now it's a 4,000 square foot, 4,000 maybe 4,500 square foot single-story building.
Yeah, I'm
This
familiar with
guy's
the building.
Yeah, it's got certainly more than enough parking. It used to be Mayor
Dr.
Tecklenburg,
Rashford's office.
Dr. Rashford's office.
I
That's
was
what it
gonna
was.
say it was a doctor's office. That's right.
It was a doctor's office. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
When it was built, it was a huge improvement to what was there
it was.
back then, and that was back in the 70s, I think, if I recall that correctly.
Early 80s. But they were clients of mine, those doctors that built that. And if you remember, Mr. Mayor, it was surrounded by the old White Swan cleaners that had fallen in, and now that's since been replaced with affordable housing that's around it. It's about 3 stories. So this kind of sits in a nice location and that has opportunity for something called new market tax credits. Mr. Mayor, you're familiar that the International African American Museum qualified for that, which is a complicated process, but if done, I think it increased to the tune of, for the museum, not quite $4 million, 3.8, 3.9 million. And then we have an opportunity to get, this is more Councilmember Gregory's home, but the HUD 202 program, which provides funding for senior housing. So it's just a win-win on so many fronts. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There was a story back on that White Swan dry cleaners that they had found a pair of pants that a man had left 20 years ago, and they finally found the misplaced pants when they were doing their some work on the property and delivered it to the man 20 years later.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you had your hand up. I
Just
saw.
to say my hat's off to everybody involved. This is a great idea.
All right.
By the way, Mr. Mayor, I noticed that you sort of joined on the bandwagon with our West Ashley logos now. So
See that car, it's headed home west of the
yes.
So let's move it along, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is there anything else we need to do on this? This is just for discussion to just get the staff in the right direction with this and get it to the Planning Commission. So thank you all for bringing it to our attention. Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. And we'll move on to item number 3. I don't want to be too late for our public works.
Yeah, that's my fault. It's my fault.
That's right. So item number C is to
Wait,
talk
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, before you leave that, Mr. Morgan, what's the next step on this item for the LDCs?
Well, I think we get together with the LDC and look at getting a rezoning application in for the MU1 and also getting the Height District zone change application in.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Reviewed concurrently.
Thank you.
All right, so Jason, welcome back. I heard you on a little leave. So you will talk to us about the Rotary Club and on the next step of that water fountain?
Well, yes, sir. Hi, this is Jason Cronsberg here. So yeah, this was a project that we had started on about 2 years ago with the Rotary Club, and there was lots of planning and discussion, and they ended up gifting all of the sculpture work that was created by a local artist, and we worked with them and had it installed into the Rotary fountain down at Marion Square. And it's a series of local and native fauna. There are a number of different birds and animals, and it's a nice, whimsical, if you will, addition to the corner and the streetscape. And it was determined at some point in time that these sculptures would be gifted to the city. So this is the formality of receiving that gift from the Rotary Club International.
I'll point out that the mayor and I and Councilmember Brady are members of the Rotary Club, and this is part of their 100th anniversary gift to the city, and part of their celebration for the 100th anniversary. So do we need to have a formal motion? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I move for approval that we accept this gift.
I second that motion.
Birthday, and I just wanted.
You got muted, Councilwoman Jackson.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, as I'm making that motion, that I've been sitting in on the design review board over the last few months, and I think instead of whimsical, we're supposed to use playful and lighthearted. That seems to be the theme for what they like to design these days. So
we'll make sure that Mr. Cronsberg uses proper terminology next time.
And thank you very much to the Rotary.
Yes, thanks to Rotary. I think there was a second from Councilmember Waring. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah, I did.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this, Councilmember Appel?
I would just like to say I particularly like the otter. Let's just note that. Please let that be noted for the record.
We will so note that your preference is the otter as all the other.
Yeah, but beautiful art. Beautiful art.
The playful otter.
Nice. All right. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you all very much for the wonderful discussions we've had on the Epic Center. And the other two issues that we just took up, all very important. And if there's any further business, I'll take it in motion that we adjourn.
Adjourn.
Adjourned.
And we'll go right into our Public Works Committee meeting.
All right, I'll move us along. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you all very much.